This video is sponsored by Muslim Certify.
What led you to decide to make hijrah?
When I became Muslim, I kind of jumped in with both feet, both hands. And I came from a very religious Christian family. And myself, I was a minister. I also had a fear of not being able to explain to my family why Islam was the truth, how it was the truth, and why I chose it. I felt like in the West, it was always no. Can I go to Johnny's house? No. Can I go to the Christmas party? No. And I felt like I owed it to them to put them with the majority. So that was my secondary why. I used to talk with a sister from Singapore, and she was getting ready to move to Egypt. She said, "Don't you want to make hijrah?" Dawud Adib gave me a call. He said, "I have something for you from a sister in Singapore." I'm like, nah, get out of town.
Did you all stay in Egypt the whole time from then until now, or did you go other countries?
We've gone to other countries. I've lived in Egypt, in several places in Egypt. I've lived in Sudan, Nigeria, and Saudi Arabia. I called out to Bahrain Oasis like, "Okay, I'm coming back. I need a place. I can't do Cairo."
Okay, you got to explain for the people. First of all, I didn't know that people could live there. And I've been in Egypt a long time. I never knew people could actually live on the Oasis.
The people in the Oasis, they're a mixture of Egyptian, Libyan, and Sudanese.
What is the range of rent prices there?
For a 3-bedroom house, I have a front balcony, back balcony, and a yard. So I pay.
Are you tired of the 9-to-5 trapping you? Are you unable to relocate because finding remote, halal income is a major obstacle? Then you need to consider Muslim Certify. Muslim Certify helps Muslim men earn anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000 per month by becoming appointment setters for online businesses. Imagine earning a thriving income with just a laptop and an internet connection, giving you the freedom to live anywhere in the world and make hijrah without financial worry, inshallah. Muslim Certify has over 150 brothers in their program with plenty of success stories. Check out the link in the description for more details.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Welcome back to a new episode of Sisters Make Hijrah. Today, inshallah, we're going to speak with Sister Fatima Abdul Malik Abbaas about her hijrah journey, which is very, very interesting. 20-plus year journey. And you can go ahead and get started. You want to tell us where you're from and everything, whatever you want to share, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Fatima Abdul Malik. I am originally from Tuscumbia, Alabama, which is in the northwest part of Alabama. I became Muslim in 1996, and I made hijrah in 2000.
What led you to decide to make hijrah? And were you married at the time, or did you have children, or how did it go?
So first, I decided to make hijrah. When I became Muslim, I kind of jumped in with both feet, both hands. And I came from a very religious Christian family. And myself, I was a minister. And so I had this burning desire to know Quran in its original language. I had, on top of having that desire to be able to read Quran without a translator, I also had a fear of not being able to explain to my family why Islam was the truth, how it was the truth, and why I chose it. I came from a lot of ministers in my family, the stereotypical type that we say Bible thumpers, And so I had this fear of being cornered and not being able to clearly articulate why Islam was the truth and what made it different from Christianity. And so I thought no better way to do that than to relocate to an Arabic-speaking country with the predominant religion being Islam. So that was my why. My secondary why was that I didn't want my children to be in a position of me always saying no. I felt like in the West, it was always no. Can I go to Johnny's house? No. Can I go to the Christmas party? No. And I felt like I owed it to them to put them with the majority. So that was my secondary why. Once I got here, why did I choose Egypt?
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's easy. Egypt makes it fairly easy for you to come, since 2000, when I first came here up until now, it's $25 to get a visa, and you don't even have to get it before you come. You can get it on arrival. So it was pretty easy. It was fairly inexpensive. And back in the days of ICQ, I don't know if you remember ICQ, it's kind of like Yahoo Messenger.
Yes.
I used to talk with a sister from Singapore, and she was getting ready to move to Egypt. She said, "Don't you want to make hijrah?" I said, "Yes, I would love to." She said, "Well, what prevents you?" I said, "Money." She said, "Well, how many people are in your family?" I said, "Well, 3 would be going." She said, "Okay, do you know Daoud Adib?" I said, "Yes, I do." She said, "Well, he's coming to my country next week." She said, "And I'm going to send your ticket money to come to Egypt."
Wow.
And of course, I've never met this lady face to face, and I'm like, yeah, okay, right.
And this is like before this 2000s.
This is when I was talking to her, it was 1999. And we used to talk just about every day, but I didn't know what she looked like. I didn't know what she sounded like, any of that. We just text. And so a couple of weeks after that, Dawood Adib gave me a call. He said, "Assalamu alaikum." He said, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm still in Philly." He goes, "Oh, okay, so can you get up to Masjid Rahma?" At the time, he was the imam at Masjid Rahma. He said, "I have something for you from a sister in Singapore." I'm like, nah, get out of town. So I told my husband at the time, I said, "A sister sent me a gift from Singapore, but we got to go get it from Dawood Adib." So we drove up to Masjid Rahma, and he just gave me an envelope. We turned around and walked away, and there was enough money in there to get plane tickets for me and my family to come to Egypt. And so that's how I first came to Egypt.
Wow. So where did you get off when you first came to Egypt? Which did you come straight to Cairo? Like, what was the place? Did you know anybody here?
The lady from Singapore preceded me by 1 month. And so when I bought my tickets, I told her, "I actually bought the tickets, I'm coming." She said, "Okay, I'll come get you from the airport." So I came into Cairo, and she had already paid the deposit for an apartment in High Famine, the 8th district. And that was my beginnings of living in Cairo in September of 2000.
So what was your first impressions of living in Nasser City, the 8th district, coming from basically previous to Philadelphia, I guess, living in this country, a rural environment in the States, like
busy.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah.
One word, busy.
And that was back then. So now
it was crowded. It was busy. At that time, I didn't know any Arabic. And so, a lot of communication is body language. And so I had a lot of mix-ups with body language. Teeth clicking, tongue clicking. I'm like, if another person sucks their teeth at me, I'm going off. Because I didn't understand the communication. So in the beginning, it was just getting used to the culture, getting used to the ways of the people.
Wow, subhanAllah. What was your kids, how old were they when they came? Like around what age?
At the time, I had an 8-year-old and a 1-year-old.
Okay, so they were still pretty, under preteen.
Yes.
Yeah, they're still formative years. Yes. What was their, impression on, what was their first, I guess, their reaction to, did you tell them you were going, or they just what did they see any difference?
My 8-year-old, I told her, but my 1-year-old was just one. Yeah. He was actually a couple of months shy of being a year old when we came here. So for my 8-year-old, everything was an adventure. She was like, "Oh yeah, we're going to where the pyramids are,"
Yeah.
And when we first got here, I put both of them in a hadana, in a preschool, nursery. They recommended that I put her in there even though she was 8 so that she could get used to the language. So that's where she started Quran, things like that. And my son was in the daycare while I went to the Fajr Center. And after about a month, I would say no less than 2 months, we were living on the 10th floor and she was looking down. She said, "Can I go play with those girls downstairs?" I said, "Girl, you don't even know how to speak Arabic." She said, "Yes, I do too." And so I said, "Go ahead." And so I stood on the balcony and I looked down at them playing and they were having conversation. I was like, wow, I can't even speak Arabic and my daughter is down there doing it. I was amazed.
And this was how many months into?
Maybe 2 months.
Yeah, this was like this for my kids. They were there in the beginning, early. Yeah, that's why we try to tell sisters, it is easier when they're younger. Not that it's not, like they can't do it when they're older, but it's just a little bit more challenging with older kids.
It's easier because it's just a part of their environment. As children get older, acculturation comes into play. And everything around that. Sometimes the child has nothing to do with the decision-making process of coming to a country. So mentally, they may actually be against it and miss their home and things like that. A lot of those types of things block language acquisition. Whereas with small children, for my 1-year-old, Arabic is his first language. He doesn't remember his foundation. He doesn't remember America as his foundation. He remembers here. And even my now 35-year-old, when she was 8, even though she has chosen to reside in the United States, when she talks about her fondest memories, it's here.
Wow. So what was Egypt their main country that they lived in, or did you did you all stay in Egypt the whole time from then until now, or did you go other countries? Or?
We've gone to other countries. I've lived in Egypt, in several places in Egypt. I've lived in Sudan, Nigeria, and Saudi Arabia.
What other places in Egypt did you stay in? Did you stay in the vicinity of Cairo, or did you go out? Did you stay around other foreigners, mostly around other Egyptians? Or how?
Okay. When I first came, I lived in Cairo. I lived in the 8th district, the 10th district. I also lived in Tajammul Awul in its beginnings. In its very beginnings, it was very new then. I've also lived in Ain Shams. After that, I moved to Sheen to study with Sheikh Abdullah bin Bedawi, and that's a small, small village, which was much to my liking.
Wow. So how far, where is exactly, can't remember, how far is Sheen from Cairo?
It's about an hour and a half.
Oh, okay, so it's not it's between Cairo and Alex, maybe?
It's after Tanta.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
After about 35 minutes from Tanta. And so that was much to my liking. I enjoyed that slower pace, farm life, more to my liking, much more to my liking. I've also lived in Aswan, Alexandria.
How long did you stay in Aswan?
3 years.
Oh, subhanAllah, really? So what made you move from Aswan to Alex?
Aswan, I love Aswan, and I felt at home in Aswan. However, if you want to get anything done as far as governmental, you have to travel all the way to Cairo. And that is between 16 and 18 hours. I think now there's a train that's 12 hours, but still
very long, yeah.
It's a long, so having multiple children, by the time I moved to Aswan, I had 6 children. So always having to worry about getting a passport renewed, even getting visas renewed, they wouldn't allow me to do it in Aswan because I came into Cairo.
Right, exactly.
And so traveling, everyone is not on the same timeline as far as when their passports are expiring, and it's just a hassle. So I didn't like living down there because of that. Alexandria was okay, I want to be closer to Cairo, but I don't want to be in Cairo. That's the only reason I moved to Alexandria. I was looking for conveniences of Cairo, but still just a little bit more laid back. Yes.
To get your consultation from people on the ground in the Muslim world, go to consultation.makehijrah.com.
My question is, this is so interesting because, I think, well, as you say, you left, when you left Alex, did you leave Alex and then go outside of Egypt, or you went to other places inside of Cairo or outside of Egypt?
Bahrain Oasis.
So when did you move to? Did you move to Saudi Arabia or move to I forgot you said Nigeria?
Yes, I lived in Nigeria for 3 or 4 years.
Wow, subhanAllah. So how was the culture, the change in maybe the environment or the culture? What was it easy to adjust to? Or what made you go to Nigeria?
I got married.
Oh, okay. So the kids were a little bit older, and some of them, so they were like, okay, we're gonna go to Nigeria now.
Yes.
So
and by that time, it was in the middle of when everybody was doing DNA testing and different things like that. And if you believe in those type of tests, then my DNA came out like 86% Nigerian. So I was just like, okay, let me go here. And, I felt like a return type of situation. Let me go here. Let me see how the land is. Let me, go and see the people, their culture, things like that.
Okay.
So I took the dive.
Then, so what made you leave there and go? Did you leave to go to Saudi Arabia?
No, when I left Nigeria, I actually came back to the States. My grandmother was ill, and it was during COVID. And we had decided not to put her in hospice because at that time they were not allowing visitors. And we wanted to be able to make sure she was being cared for. And so we decided to keep her at home. And so I traveled back to Alabama, and me, my mother, and my uncle, we rotated nights taking care of my grandmother.
Did she make it or did she pass away?
She passed away. She passed away about 5 months later.
Were you there when she passed away? Were you able to stay? Oh,
yes, she was in her home. I had actually just left her home, and she passed away.
So she was around her family, and
yes,
that's kind of relatable to culture-wise. Like I noticed with some of my family members from down south, they prefer that to be around family when they return back to Allah.
Yes,
and you try to as a Muslim, you're trying to just give them as much dawah as possible because that's one of the best times.
Yes, and it's such a finality, when you have family that are not Muslim, and you strive so hard to try not to get, I don't know how to explain it because you can't do anything for them if they don't take the Shahada. And so for me, I didn't want to have that type of finality that this is it. I can't make dua for you. That's done. So it's a very different type of experience.
Yes. Allah will give everybody what they rightfully deserve.
Yes.
Alhamdulillah. Especially, I think about members of the family who have not, they haven't attacked us or did anything. They just simply chose not to believe.
Right.
And that's their decision. And, Allah says He doesn't, there's no compulsion in the deen. But at least, alhamdulillah, we can spread, the message as best as we can. SubhanAllah. So when you came back from the States, did you come back to Egypt or you went to, I'm still interested in Saudi Arabia because why I'm saying this because we're on this Saudi series thing.
Yes.
And it's like so many people are like, oh, I need to get there.
Yes.
And it's like, as we know that it's not like one specific place for hijrah. Wherever Allah puts you and wherever it's meant for you to go, that's where you're going to be, So it's just interesting seeing the process,
I've lived in Saudi Arabia twice. Once I lived in Qasim, and the last time was in Mecca. I absolutely loved living in Mecca. Where I lived, I could see the clock tower from my bedroom. I absolutely loved it, but governmental regulations is another thing. And over the years on this journey of Hijrah, one of the things that we succumb to is government regulations, the changing of government regulations, having to abide by certain things. And for me, I love Saudi Arabia, but until I have a more permanent way of staying there, a more stable way of staying there, it's not an option for me.
Understand?
Yes.
Yeah. So did you think when you left from there, would you it's always a default back to home bases for you as Egypt?
Yes, absolutely.
SubhanAllah.
I think I know Egypt as well, if not better, than my birth country. And so it's always a reset. To come to Egypt is somewhere that I know, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and I can manage it, whether it's good, bad, or ugly.
Yes.
So I was just in Saudi Arabia in January, and I thought that's where I was going to stay. And I had just bought a house full of furniture, brand new furniture. And the Americans that were around me, they kept doing these border runs. Every 3 months, they go to Jordan or Bahrain and come back in. And so in April, I had prepared to do the same. I had made my reservations on the bus to go to Jordan, me and my children, and to come back. And the night before I was supposed to leave, the driver called me and said, I can't take you across the border. I said, why not?
Wow.
He said, laws changed. He said, I can take you, but they're not going to let you back in.
Wow.
I said, what do you mean? He said, it's not me, it's the government. If I take you across, you're not going to get back in. And then to stay in and overstay your visa in Saudi is 100 rial per day.
How much is that in dollars?
That's about $35
A day.
per person per
day.
day. And it was 4 of us.
Wow.
That's not an option.
Yeah.
So I called my daughter's grandparents who live here in Faisal, in Cairo. And I said, we need to come there. And they was like, okay, when? I said, tomorrow. And so we just bought tickets to Egypt and we came here and said, okay, this is us until Allah says different.
Wow. SubhanAllah. So when you came to stay again, like, where did you decide on, being that you've been up and down Egypt, so where did you touch down this time?
I touched down in Cairo and I went to Faisal because that's where my daughter's family was. And we stayed a couple of months. I called out to Bahrain Oasis like, okay, I'm coming back. I need a place. I can't do Cairo. I just can't.
Okay, you got to explain for the people. What is it called again?
Bahrain Oasis.
Bahrain Oasis. Okay. First of all, I didn't know that people could live there. And I've been in Egypt a long time. I never knew people could actually live on the Oasis. I've just seen pictures and people I know who went to visit. They were just like, it's when they talk about it, it's like a place you don't think that people could live there. It's just like just really beautiful and just outside the norm of what you know about, like how Egypt looks in general, right. No matter what places you go to, it's very different. Could you describe like the area for people who may just be familiar with like the tall high-rise buildings, the brown, the cars honking, the donkeys in the street, and rickshaws passing through, and the busyness.
Well, there are no high-rises in Bahrain. No apartments.
Wow.
They're homes, what they call Beit Beledi. So all of the homes have yards, possibly donkey stable, places for goats. This type of, more like a Sudanese style home with the courtyards and things like that. Where we live, there's 7, some say 5, some say 7 oases in Egypt. The closest one to Cairo is Fayoum, and most people have heard about that. The furthest one is Siwa, which is 20 minutes from the Libyan border. We're right in the middle.
Wow.
We're about 2.5, 3 hours from Fayoum and about 4 hours from the Libyan border.
Wow. SubhanAllah. So how do you relate the Egyptians who live there to the people in like in Cairo, for example?
It's a totally different culture. They're more laid back. They're not in a rush about anything. Nothing they're in a rush about. It's just very different. The women in my village, they all wear niqab. You don't see them much. You know, they have their own little inside lives. It's just very different.
So what do you do there? I mean, I understand, we're all like mothers, wives, women, Muslim women, we are busy.
Yes.
Students, teachers, you gotta, Oh, I meant to ask you about that too. So when I'm gonna step back a little bit. The education of the children this whole time. When you moved to the Oasis, because it's not as many people and stuff. What did you do for like, just like education for the children?
Well, I've been homeschooling since 1991, and that is forever. Even if they go to a markaz for something or they take a class from someone else, the backbone of their education comes from me. So that doesn't switch up.
Yeah, I just wanted to emphasize, that's why I asked, because, we, amongst the sisters, there are so many of us who home educate, and that's a common question we get, like, okay, depending, even if you switch countries, what are you going to do about education? And it's that we want to emphasize that you don't need to be necessarily, worried about it. As long as you have the goals of what you're trying to teach your children, or what's the main, supplies that you need, or whatever supplements you need, or, resources, human and otherwise, because technology is a thing. But, you also have life skills and things like that. I saw your TikTok. I was so amazed at the amount of animals you have and how the children, they know how to nurture and care for all these different types of animals, and, as well as like the garden is bearing fruits and vegetables. And, people underestimate the value of these type of skills, especially like only thing I do know about the area is that it's nomadic, and that, when you talk about like nomadic tribes, I still didn't really understand that in terms of Egyptians, being nomadic with the people from Libya. And also you said like Sudan, I think we were talking about it, but we didn't talk too much about Sudan. But, how long did you live in Sudan for? I'm going to ask you this.
7 years.
Wow, subhanAllah. Okay, what's the major cultural difference between the Sudanese and Egyptian? Interacting with the people and like getting to know them, was it difficult, or was it like, oh, this kind of like Egyptian, culture, or it's like some things different?
For a long time, it's a lot of similarities. For many, many years, Egypt and Sudan was one country. Yeah. So you're going to see a lot of similarities in culture. I think the main difference down in Sudan, they still are very tribal. They have many, many hundreds of tribal languages. So they have a common culture, but then they have some things that are specific to each tribe. So sometimes you may think, oh, I understand these people, and then you start communicating with someone from a different tribe that you haven't communicated with before, and then something is off. You're like, okay, I don't understand this, I don't understand that, and it's because it's a different tribe.
Did you encounter that type of situation in where you live now amongst the people in your, like the Egyptians, I guess the nomads?
In the Oasis?
Yes.
In the Oasis, they do have their different tribes. However, their whole culture is minding their business, really. I mean, they're so to themselves. They're friendly if you reach out to them, if you talk to them, if you get around them, they're going to talk to you. But like my landlord, from the day that I moved into that house, I think he's been in my house twice.
Wow.
Like he's not going to come on my side of the yard. He's not going to come up in the house. His wife, we live inside the same compound. I've seen her 3 times, like in almost a year. And we live in the same courtyard. And that's just how they are. They mind their business. They take care not to get into yours. And I like that.
Yes.
They don't ask those questions I call Egyptian questions
Yeah.
that they shouldn't ask.
Yes, subhanAllah. So they let you. So like, was the land there before you moved in, or they allowed you to bring like animals and grow your food there? I mean, like usually, you know how it is in Cairo. It's like if you even have a house. Even in New Cairo, I think if you have a house, you still have. You can't just like have goats and animals and growing, in front of in your yard and the landlord, unless you own it. But even still, in certain places you can't really do that.
Well, my landlord already had 7 goats. Wow. So he already had goats, and the goat place he has, the place for the goats, can hold up to 300 goats.
Really? SubhanAllah.
And he also had a couple of donkeys, so that was already there. So when I came into the place, I asked him, is it okay that I buy goats? Is it okay that I, have a garden? And he said, my place is your place, So I started buying goats. Then he has a property 3 houses down from our house that was just empty. He wasn't doing anything with it. I said, can I garden here? And he built a fence. I said, go ahead. And that was at no additional rent or anything. It's just like I'm not doing anything with it. And so.
What is the range of rent prices there in terms of, maybe we could say it in Egyptian pounds and dollars for the audience?
Okay. So I pay 8,500 Egyptian pounds a month for a 3-bedroom house. I have a front balcony, back balcony, and a yard. 8,500 pounds is about $180 a month.
Wow. This is for the people who we hear, everybody might not be privy to this, but in our emails and amongst the community who's not here yet, there's still I would call it now an urban legend. You can live in Egypt for $200 and you can live, we're not talking about Cairo, we're talking about way in the desert amongst the nomadic tribes. And like we talked about this before, how you didn't think it was suitable for people who like maybe first coming to Egypt, maybe more suitable for people who have been, who are accustomed to the way daily life is in Egypt. And, they're able to deal with some of the environments and the climate and stuff like that. But yeah, you can't live for $200 outside of a village.
Even now, I spend about $500, $600 a month.
And you confirmed exactly.
Yeah, and that's for everything.
It's like food, electricity,
utilities. Mm-hmm. Water is free in my location. Okay. I have internet.
Okay. What about, how's the transportation like? Do you take Ubers or do you walk? What's the landscape like?
The landscape is just no transportation. My landlord has a truck. So if we want to go into the next city to get some things we can't get in our village, then he'll take us, It
kind of reminds you, this is reminiscent of the South. Yes. You got to go into the next town to get certain. So like where's the, is there any supermarket there? Like corner stores? Do you have
We have one corner store, well 2. And the one that I frequent, it has the basics, but she also has some village things she does. So say, for instance, I wanted chicken or duck. and I didn't want to go to the next city, she would just call the farms around and say, when can you get a duck here? When can you get a chicken here? Okay, Oma Bass wants 3 chickens, Oma Bass wants 4 ducks, whatever. And then she'll tell me when to come get them. And so she does that. Things like fresh butter. She just has kind of like a farm network. She knows who to get things from.
Okay. So it's like community.
Community.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I don't recommend that new people come there is because most people, when they first come, they don't know Arabic. And there's no schools there, no language schools or anything like that. You would have to speak Arabic. And then even that, the dialect of Arabic out in the Wahat, in the Oasis, is different than here in Cairo.
Yes.
It's much different. The people in the Oasis, they're a mixture of Egyptian, Libyan, and Sudanese.
Oh, that's really, really interesting. So what about what do you feel, is it possible to get a teacher? Like an Arabic teacher, Quran teacher?
It's possible, but most likely they're not going to know English.
Okay.
So you would struggle, as far as communication. There's some people that know English, but they might not have the ability to teach.
Yes. But I mean, education-wise, are they people who go to school, or they mostly learn amongst their own tribes and stuff like this?
They have
They go to
Egyptian
college?
government schools, and it varies. You have some families that their children go to school and they end up, going away and going to college and coming back. But a large majority of them will go up to 6th grade and then quit.
And what do they do after they stop?
They run the family farms. Their life is built on agriculture. For instance, my landlord has 100 date trees.
I don't know.
When it's date season, it's all hands on deck.
Yes.
And the amount of dates that he collects from those trees takes care of him and his family, his 2 brothers and his sisters and their families for the entire year.
To get your step-by-step guidance on relocating to the Muslim world, go to makehijrah.com/blueprint.
And so they're mashallah, it's very, what would you call it, independent of others.
Yes, very much so.
It's very, I think, personally, it's not bad, It's a good thing. You don't have to, you don't need to go to the store and depend on the store for everything that you can just grow on your own land and, get from other. It's like it's a farming community type of thing, kind of. Yeah. But in the desert, that's probably why it's seems like a paradox, because I would always think that I know there's farmland, but it's not, the environment is not necessarily green, how we think of in the States or
but
in the West.
Oasis are very green because the water is underground.
Exactly, yeah.
So everything grows in an oasis.
Yeah,
you go 4 or 5 steps outside of the oasis, it's nothing but desert. Between here and Cairo, when I come into Cairo, it's nothing. You got 3 or 4 gas stations, but other than that, it's desert.
Wow. So do you see animals out there? This is random, but like camels, for example,
It's camels
cows.
there. When we go to the mountains, sometimes we see foxes and things like that out there.
Okay.
Yes.
So any I would say, if you want to say dangerous animals or insects, like things that people, if they were going to go there, I know some people do hiking, like for example, they used to do camping, and they ask about what type of, is there snakes that's going to come and, or what's out in this, inside the desert at night,
I'm told that there's snakes out there, but snakes like hiding places.
Yeah.
So you're not going to go and sleep on a rock, put your head on a rock, possibility it's a snake under there. But we go out almost every weekend and we spend a night in the mountains, and we've never encountered anything other than a fox.
So what for the this is random as well. The bathroom, do they have? How is their bathroom situation out there? Is
We
it
have
like
regular
outhouses?
bathrooms, or out in the mountains.
Yes.
In the mountains, it's just straight Bedouin stuff. You
Okay.
find you somewhere to use the bathroom.
Okay. So, but in the houses, they have the regular plumbing and.
Yes, we have regular
Okay.
plumbing, regular toilets, sinks.
Okay.
Yes.
SubhanAllah. Wow. So a 3-bedroom house. That is something that is not, I would say, not common to find, in, especially when you're talking about Cairo. Even, for example, in New Cairo, they have like single family homes, but it's not in the way that how you described it. And plus, we'll put your TikTok information inside in the description. But when you go there and you see the actual like live footage is different. It's way different than what how Cairo is, and New Cairo areas.
Yes.
It's very I don't know. It's like, it reminds me of kind of like a country desert type of a place.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, SubhanAllah, it's so interesting. I mean, I didn't even know Americans could. I want to say, I guess I didn't think it was against the law, but like that it's not really. They don't really do that much. Yeah, they don't really do that much. They usually try to go where everybody told them about, and but what has that place done as far as like your children's outlook on life? Them growing up in different countries, all these different countries, but in the Muslim world, and then also having like, what is their identity like, and what do they identify most with as far as their, I guess, like their culture? What they identify with the most?
First, my motto has always been, make the world your classroom. So as we travel and we go different places, we're always trying to take the best of everywhere that we've gone. We always try to get the best learning experiences out of everywhere we go. And before I go, we kind of study the places that we're going. All right, guys, we're going to Nigeria, and we start everything Nigerian. We're looking at YouTube, we're trying out dishes, we're listening to languages, different things like that. So they go into a country with something, they have an expectation, they have a background knowledge. So they have always looked at going to another country as an adventure. And for them, I think my older children identify more with Sudanese culture because in their formative years, they were in Sudan, like between the ages of 10 and 14, 15-ish. My younger children, or my middle set of children, identify more with, I won't say Egyptian culture, but they're comfortable here in Egypt, and their Arabic is more or less an Amiya than Sudanese Darija. And my youngest child refuses to identify.
Okay, SubhanAllah. This is so interesting. We both spoke about our different transitions, and if we talked about this, it would be hours and hours. I did see that you sent me a link for a book, and I was looking at the other ones too, SubhanAllah. And you have a book about like some of your experiences living abroad and just in the Muslim world, and it's like it's SubhanAllah, you gotta explain this. How long did it take you to write this, and when did you start? Like, did you start after you had like kind of come to the conclusion, okay, I have a home base, or was it like throughout each place where you like kind of putting it together, compiling it, or do your kids do they also? Yeah, how do they process? Do they write? Do they have journals and stuff? Like, this is
we all have very different processes. For me, I've been writing for 25 years now. Mm-hmm. Professionally, I began as a ghostwriter. So there's a lot of works out there with other people's names on it.
Yes.
And I was comfortable in the background, and as an editor. So, and I still ghostwrite and edit to this day. My most recent book, Deschooling the Muslim Mind, I wrote in about 3 weeks. And it was I teach a class every Thursday night, early Thursday morning, and it's called Legacy Story Keepers. And so it's usually older people who want to leave a legacy. You know, they have a story to tell. They feel like it needs to be told from them before they leave.
Right. Yeah.
So my last class, which is graduating February the 15th, I said, I'm going to write with you guys.
Okay.
And so I wrote that book in a few weeks. And as I was teaching the class, when we would meet, I would share the process with them. And I teach them a process of writing memoir, autobiography, how to do anthologies, things like that. So for me, deschooling, I have a passion for deschooling because the current educational system, and it doesn't matter whether you're in America, whether you're in Egypt or Saudi Arabia, is built from the same source.
Exactly.
And it came from the Prussian military. And it was never intended to educate. It was intended to produce soldiers, to produce obedient citizens that would not question authority. It had nothing to do with creativity. It had nothing to do with education. And then through colonization, this system was spread throughout the Muslim world. So even though you may be in a Muslim country, you're sitting in a classroom that's built off of non-Islamic values. And so for people who feel like it's something wrong and they can't put their finger on it, I tell them they need to go through a deschooling process. First, you need to evaluate your own experience with schooling. And then before homeschooling your children, you need to help them deschool from what they learn in a school system, because there's a hidden curriculum in school systems that's not in a textbook. And it teaches your children far more than any textbook can. Who can speak, who cannot, who's superior, who's inferior, who's good, who's bad, things like that. So I wrote it for Muslim parents in order for them to deschool and to start questioning and asking themselves, why doesn't this system work for my child? And then what's the alternative?
Yes, this is important because this is one of the questions that many sisters ask. This is such a common question. You know, why would you homeschool in the Muslim world? You know, it's you know, you're free. You can just put them in, and it's not necessarily like that.
Right.
You know, subhanAllah. And that it is exactly why. It's understood. This is exactly why it's like that. What's the name of your book that is about your life and in the different countries?
Well, I have one that's in production now. I haven't published it yet, but I have some fiction books that's loosely based on my time in different communities, whether they're in the United States or here. I have The Widower's New Love, which is a fiction book written under my previous pen name, Nikki Levette. I also have Loving the Chief's Son. And right now, I'm working on Flying by the Tip of My Hijab Through Egypt. Okay. And this will be a sum total over the years of my experiences living in Egypt. I plan for it to be a series doing Flying by the Tip of My Hijab through Sudan, through Saudi.
Oh, I understand. Yes, subhanAllah. We gotta get that. We gotta looking forward to that. Yeah, because you know stories. We know when I noticed that when the sisters when we get together, and especially those of us who have been abroad for a long time, we can real true stories for days, and it's some the hysterically funny, just hilarious. You have just sad. Upsetting, frustrated. Life is life,
it's life.
But it's so interesting because sometimes, like we were talking about, you'd feel like people don't understand where you're coming from.
Right.
It's like we have like multiple parts of our life. We have our life in the States as our childhood, and then as our becoming adulthood, and then living in the Muslim world, and then of course with being married and having children, and then our children have their own families, is very hard to put it all in one, like in our thing.
Yes.
It needs to be like you said, the legacy needs to be shown so people can leave that behind for the people who come to follow. And I would say even if they're not old, Allah knows best when we don't know when it's our time.
That's true.
And we have so many things to benefit the community and our own families, who have, maybe they haven't gone through the same things, but they will, because it's life, right?
Yes.
And, we have a lot of, so many experiences happened just throughout the historical aspects of living in these different places that is, like I told us, like in a forum, with the Sisters Forum, if they could ask questions, then you will get so many more responses, especially when it's by voice.
Right.
Because if we had to like explain it in words, it's going to be a book just for one thing. What about a school for a kid? It's not just not that question. It's layers to all of it, and I just find it so fascinating. I'm so glad you took your time to come out and speak with us.
Thank you.
You
for
live so
having
far
me.
away. We took the opportunity as soon as it came. Allah just said, we did it, and alhamdulillah, it's finished. We got it out. Inshallah, the sisters and the community at large will benefit from it. Again, jazakumullah khair for your time.
Ameen.
We will link all your TikToks and your book titles into the description, and may Allah make it beneficial for everybody, inshallah.
Ameen. Ameen.